All right, today we're diving into something really fascinating. We're going to be medical detectives, and our crime scene, it's the human brain, probably the most complex and mysterious place you could ever investigate.
So think about that for a second. How do you solve a mystery like that? I mean, it's not like you can just put up yellow tape. The clues are, well, they're incredibly subtle. The evidence can be microscopic, and the stakes, they couldn't be higher. So what's the first step? Well, the investigation almost always starts in the exact same spot. And it's not with some fancy high-tech scanner. Nope, it starts with a conversation. You see, in neurology, a lot of the biggest clues, the most important symptoms, are subjective. You can't see them on a test. So the neurologist's number one job, their most important tool, is just to listen.
Because really the patient is the only witness to the crime. They're the one living with this mystery day in and day out. Their story, what they tell the doctor, that's where you find the first threads to pull on. It's how you start to unravel the whole thing. Okay, let's open up our first case file.
Now, at first glance, this seems pretty straightforward, right? I mean, who hasn't felt super tired during the day? But as the neurologist really starts to listen, a much, much stranger picture starts to take shape.
Just let that sink in for a minute. A strong, happy emotion, laughter of all things, makes her body just give out. It's a total paradox. And this is the kind of bizarre, specific clue that turns a simple case of being tired into a really deep neurological mystery.
And you know, as the detective digs a little deeper, even more strange clues start to pop up. So it's not just about the sleepiness, it's that sudden muscle weakness when she laughs. That's got a name, it's called cataplexy. It's also these incredibly vivid, almost dreamlike hallucinations right as she's falling asleep. And then, sometimes she wakes up and is literally paralyzed, can't move a muscle. Every single one of these is another crucial piece of the puzzle. Okay, so we've got our first set of clues. But to really show you how different these cases can be, let's open up a second file. Because every single investigation is unique, and a good medical detective has to be ready for a totally different kind of mystery every time.
Now, with this case, the main problem isn't subtle at all. We're talking about intense, debilitating pain. But just like before, the real clues, the important stuff, it's all in the details of what she's experiencing. I mean, can you even imagine that? The gentlest touch, something that should feel nice, like a breeze, instead triggers this horrible electric jolt of pain. It's a perfect example of the strange ways the nervous system can get rewired. The totally ordinary becomes completely agonizing.
So the neurologist starts taking notes, getting all the specifics. The pain is sharp. It's brief, only lasting seconds or minutes. It's only on one side of her face, and it has these very, very specific triggers. You see, these aren't just random details. They're like the fingerprints left behind by a very specific neurological culprit.
All right, so the witness statements are in, the detective has heard the story, now they need some hard evidence. It's time to move beyond the patient's words and find some objective, scientific proof.
And this is pretty much the standard operating procedure for any good investigation. You start with the clues, right, the patient's history, then you do a physical exam to see if you can spot any more signs. And only then, once you have a theory, a hypothesis in mind, do you bring out the specialized tools to find that cold, hard evidence.
And here's what they find. For our first patient, the one with the sleepiness, a sleep study shows she falls asleep way, way too fast, abnormally fast. And for our second patient with the facial pain, the MRI reveals the smoking gun. A blood vessel is literally pressing on the nerve that controls feeling in her face. So now, all those clues we gathered, they've got concrete evidence to back them up.
Okay, this is it. The moment of truth. All the clues from the story, all the evidence from the tests, it's all laid out on the table. It's finally time to name our suspect.
So, think back to that first case. All those bizarre symptoms. The overpowering sleepiness, the knees buckling with laughter, the hallucinations, they're all pointing in the exact same direction.
And the diagnosis is narcolepsy. It's a condition where the brain's control center for sleep and wakefulness just isn't working right. And suddenly, all those separate, weird clues, they snap together and make perfect sense.
Okay, so what about that excruciating facial pain? You know, the electric shock feeling from just a light breeze? Well, that MRI gave us a massive clue, didn't it?
That is trigeminal neuralgia. That blood vessel we saw, the one pressing on the nerve, it was causing the nerve to misfire like crazy, turning a totally normal sensation into blinding pain. And just like that, case closed.
But you know, cracking the case is really only half the battle. Now the detective has to figure out the right plan of attack. How do you actually stop the culprit in their tracks?
So for narcolepsy, you really have to prioritize. What's the biggest problem? It's the overwhelming daytime sleepiness. Sure, a drug like fluoxetine can help a bit with the cataplexy, the muscle weakness, but it doesn't fix the core issue. That's why modafinil, a drug that directly helps you stay awake, is the first choice. You always go after the biggest problem first.
And for the trigeminal neuralgia, we know the culprit, right? It's that overactive, misfiring nerve. So the most logical first step is to try and calm that nerve down. And that is exactly what a drug called carbamazepine does. Now you can see surgery is also an option, and that would directly fix the problem of the blood vessel pressing on the nerve. But you always start with the least invasive option, which is why medication is the first line of defense.
And look, these two cases, they're just the tip of the iceberg. Whether we're talking about a sleep disorder, a pain syndrome, or something completely different, this methodical, detective-like process, it's always the same. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the path to solving one of these neurological mysteries is actually super clear and logical. You start by listening to the patient's story. That's where the clues are. Then you use tools to find hard evidence. You put the clues and the evidence together to crack the case, and then you pick a treatment based on a really clear, rational plan.
It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? The brain is really the final frontier. It can create these incredibly specific, complex, and just baffling mysteries. And with every single case that gets solved, we get one tiny step closer to understanding its deepest, most hidden secrets.